Thanks for tuning in and welcome to the pool party. I hope you can swim because we're definitely diving into the deep end with a huge splash of truth, facts, evidence, information, and proof. Swim. Say what you mean. It's talk about talking. How we listen, how we hear, how we speak, how we hear what we're listening to when we speak, how a listener hears what we're saying, if what we're saying, what they're actually hearing and or understanding. Is it clear? Swim. Say what you mean. Well, that's just the beginning of understanding, because after we get that understanding, how do we accept it? How we respond if it's not what we expect is paramount. Are you okay with the truth? Are you man, woman, human, or spiritual enough to accept the truth? Let's find out. Welcome to the Swimming Pool with your host, Travis Bridges.
What's happening? How you doing? How you been, friend? Here's hoping you're having an awesome win-win day. It's time for another edition of SWYM. It's the acronym for Say What You Mean. Why would you not say what you mean? Well, because we just don't. We are emotional beings. Everybody knows that. And if you're over the age of 11 or 12, you will know that we can often get into our feelings, such as this right here. Check it out. Oh! There's a feeling right there just kicked in. It's called the theme music. I like it. Swing Out Sisters Breakout. That was one of the songs I played when I was on the radio back in the late 80s. Yeah. Yes. So, SWYM is the acronym for Say What You Mean, and we're talking about talking. It's just talk about talking. And we're going to continue this week, and the subject has been for the last couple of weeks, mind, body, and soul, or body, mind, and soul, whichever comes first, considering that they are somewhat all in the same, or as one of my guests said, they are the same. There is no difference. Well, there has been some proof and some evidence and maybe even new information that they are different or have different entities, and I'm not going to argue that right now. However, we will talk about it some more. By chance, if you'd like to talk to me or have me talk about a subject, I'd love to do it. No, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm nothing but a guy who has learned on his own how to listen with a little less of my own emotions. I think it's important to take information based on, universal principles, points of reference and references, and even law to analyze situations. Oftentimes, we have many disputes, and we can solve those disputes if we can get a little more out of our feelings and filter whatever the information or evidence is based on universal principles, points of references, and law. And of course, even with that, sometimes it doesn't matter. Someone will hear new information. They will hear proof. They will hear facts, even evidence in some cases, and it won't matter because the truth is unbelievable. You get it? The truth is unbelievable. If you don't get it, I get it. Anyway, I do have two callers, one canned and one that's standing by that's waiting for me, and we're going to continue to discuss body, mind, and soul, and we're also going to discuss arguing logic. Why would you argue logic unless you are just into your feelings? Don't ask me. Anyway, I'm going to take a little short pause for the cause, and I'm going to be right back with my first caller. So do me a favor. Hold the spot you got.
Mighty horn music. Mighty horn music.
As time draws near and you plan your social events, call Mighty Horn Music for a party you and your friends will never forget. From banquets, receptions, family reunions, and church functions to birthday, executive, or private parties, Mighty Horn delivers. Event packages include live musicians, psalmists, comedians, clowns, and a karaoke show that's guaranteed to make you laugh. Mighty Horn Music specializes in providing a variety of music to keep your guests going for hours. Mighty Horn Music. Let us create a custom sound for your special event. From start to finish, Mighty Horn Music will plan your theme, decorate, cater, and entertain your guests with class and style. This year, make your events live with Mighty Horn Music. Call 786-487-7338, 786-487-7338, or log on to mightyhornmusic.com and let's party.
Yeah, let's party. Let's see if I got it right that time. Did I come back fast and on time? Hey, I've got a little bit of experience in radio, and I'm trying to dig up or resurrect some of those radio skills so that I can be a little bit faster and a little bit on time. When I first started this was a spinoff from my COVID concert series where I brought my saxophone online, and I played for a few weeks and did pretty good. It was fun, but I was just being tugged on by my old communication roots of a radio that said, hey, you may not have the face for a camera, but the voice still works and the skills are still there. So I started to do it, and here I am. I've got so many plans, so many things on the way in terms of what I'm going to do eventually with guests and with cameras and lighting and so many things. Right now, I'm still getting used to this camera shot and this camera shot, and maybe I'll even have a technical director and a director at some point in time pointing me this way and that way. I do have quite a few idols on YouTube that I really like, and I'm not trying to copy anybody, but I do like what they're doing, and I think they are doing their part to give back to society in sharing what they have inside of them in terms of knowledge, information, and whatever their gift, skills, and talents may be, just like mine. I may not be as sexy and hot as some of you, but I am that I am, and I'm okay with that, and I'm just going to take what I have. I believe that I have the ability to listen, and about 5 years or so ago, I keep saying 3 years or 5 years, but I'm going to just round it off and say about 5 years, I had a little meeting with myself, and I had to take full responsibility for every place I found myself. It wasn't easy. It wasn't pretty. In fact, it was very painful to go to the mirror and look in that mirror and not blame anybody but who I saw in that mirror. And nobody was standing beside me. Nobody was in front of me. Nobody was above me or beneath me. It was just me looking at me. And I said, hey, buddy, you got some work to do, and ain't nobody coming to your rescue. That rhymed, didn't it? You got work to do, and ain't nobody coming to your rescue. Anyway, I said I have a caller standing by, and I think my caller is still there. Hey, caller, are you with me?
Oh, yeah, I'm here, and I ain't going nowhere.
Oh, you know what time it is. I like it. I like it. I appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad at all. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm not going to keep you long because I have a caller that's going to be at least an hour, and we want to get to that. So you're what I'm going to be, what I call my warm-up act. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we've been talking about body, mind, and soul, and I know you've heard the first two live streams, and I just want to get your take on them because I don't think we've talked about either. This is going to be my third one on that subject, and it's so interesting, and I'm going to start with my thoughts, and then you can give me yours. But what I'm noticing is that I'm not trying to put anything or anybody on blast. I'm not trying to prove any points at all, because I did get checked on that. You're trying to prove a point. Well, no, I'm not proving any points. However, I am bringing awareness to things that I've noticed within myself first, and that I see even more as I examine myself and interact with other people. So I'm not proving any points, but I am bringing awareness to how we listen, how we hear, what we do with new information. I've had two callers in a row, 2 weeks in a row, that had an opinion or a thought, and then I exposed a new information, new proof, new facts, and and for some reason, when we get stuck on something, we don't want to change because it might take away from us in some kind of way. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, so I don't know what it's called, but I recognize it when I see it. So I'm noticing that when someone take a stance and then you put information there that challenges that in some kind of way, it creates some type of threat, and it shows in some kind of way. There's magic that happens that shows character traits and personalities as conversations unfold if we're not careful with our thoughts and how we're receiving the information, if we're not listening or paying attention, and or if we are in our thoughts, our feelings, or our beliefs more so than what's actually happening right in front of us. So with all of that good stuff being said, I want you to tell me and give me your thoughts on what you were able to hear. So I'm listening.
Okay. Well, one thing I did notice that you did present evidence of a situation where the young lady suggested that, one thing was one thing and something was something else. And even though you proved to her, well, the mind can still function even if the brain is not working or vice versa. And she just would not budge from that. She's just like, no, I'm not changing my story. No, I'm not changing my mind. And you were a little pushy. You're a little pushy because you kept.
Okay, stop right there. Hold 1 second. When you say pushy, that can be misleading, especially to me, myself, and I, all three of me. When you say I was pushy, I just have one quick question, then you continue. Was I in any way disrespectful to my guest? Yes or no?
No.
Okay, go ahead. So being pushy is subjective, but go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Okay. Well, I'll change the word. I won't say pushy, but you are persisting and you're insisting that, okay, I'm showing you something, how it can be different, and you still are not going to change your mind. And she refused, and it seemed like the more you prove it can, she still was not going to change her mind. So when you did that, I kind of thought like, okay, you're showing her that yes, the brain can be affected, but the mind can still work. You showed you brought different scenarios where you have proven that yes, the mind works even if the brain doesn't work, or vice versa, and she just would not budge from that. And I thought that, okay, after 2 times, maybe third time, let it go.
Okay, so now you made the point that I didn't even hear the first few times. You said I proved something. I don't want to say I proved anything. I think if we are using what we, have to use, which is universal principles, you can't get away from that. Points of references are already established, and law is just what it is. We all have to pretty much abide by it unless we find some kind of loophole. So I don't want to say I proved anything. However, I did present information that was consistent with what I was saying. So, okay, maybe I did prove something, but I'm not going to take credit for proving anything.
Okay.
So.
Right. But you see, she would not change her mind.
No. Well, my first and second guess and my third guess, after you, did something similar to that. And again, I'm not putting anybody on blast because nobody did anything wrong. But it's amazing how you get in, I call it, I guess, the snowball effect. Once you start going downhill, it starts to build. So, and when you're in a conversation, you don't even notice you're either going, down a hill or that you're even rolling. And if you say something, the subconscious mind and the ego and the emotions, everything is so strong that you can slap somebody in the face with proof and evidence, and it still will mean very little because emotions are very powerful, and ego really does control it, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about, because it has happened to me and it still happens to me. And when someone checks me, instead of being offended, I'm just glad that, okay, someone presented something, not proved me wrong, but gave me a different way to
Right.
look at something. And I just hope that if someone presents something that really does give me a different way to look at something based on universal principles, points of references, and law, that I will be humble enough to not change, but at least be open to new and different
Accept it.
evidence and information. So yeah, well, there you go. And there it is.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so as you can see, I'm moving along. My live stream has been different from when I first started. I was just coming on, just saying, "Hey, what you want to talk about?" And I'm getting a little. I don't know. I'm getting better at it. The more I watch of other YouTubers, and the more I put into play what it is I really want to do and what I'm capable of doing, it's starting to come together a little better. But unless you have something else to say on that, I'm going to move on with a couple other things I want to mention and even share with you as well as my audience. So you want to say any more about those two and that mindset?
No,
Okay.
we
Well,
can move on to something else.
okay, yeah, we have a few more minutes. I've been away and I'm writing a book and I'm working on some new stuff right now. And over the weekend, I took some time off to go work. And while I was flying like 32,000 feet in the air, I pulled out my book. I started writing in July, and I haven't read anything. I've done some editing with my editor, and we've been working on, all parts of the book that I'm writing. And I actually read it for myself. I was on the plane for about 3 hours, and 2.5 of those hours, I just read my own stuff. And I think I got a little misty here just reading it, because I've got a lot of information in there. I'm sharing a lot of, thoughts, views, and comments about my life and how my character and personality developed based on my childhood. And it's interesting. And if I could be the frog, ribbit, that praises his own pawn, the book is not going to be bad. It's going to be interesting. I'm about 3/4 done, and I'm thinking that by the end of October, I will be finished with all of the entries that I'm going to put in. And another thing I realized, I could live to be 110 years old, and I would never be able to tell everything that's in my heart and mind and in my life experiences in one book.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And then even on the way back, I read for about another hour and still was about, a little more than halfway through with what I have. And I'm only 3/4 through with everything. And I'm kind of a slow reader, so that may not
Not
count so
you.
much. Yeah, well, I don't read as fast as I should. But I was reading, and it was interesting. And then I'm excited about, putting this off for a long time. And keep praying for me, okay? And thank you in advance for
Most
your
definitely.
support.
Are there going to be any pictures?
I don't know yet. I am doing something a little slick and smooth that I hadn't planned to do. I guess the best way to describe it is like I'm doing like an addendum, so to speak, like an attachment. I've got some things that I've been putting together that's going to be in support of the book that I won't officially release until after the book has been released. That's going to be supportive of some of the entries that I have in the book. So I don't know. Who knows? I haven't decided if I'm going to self-publish or if I'm going to do something fancy. I don't know yet. I'm just trying to get the content finished. And who knows? Maybe some pictures may be in there. I don't have many pictures. Maybe some illustrations, if nothing else. But the video stuff that I'm going to do, maybe I'll put a CD and a compilation of what I'm putting together, in terms of the video, because I'm telling the story in a different way than from the book. And that's a good idea. So thanks for that. Maybe I'll put a DVD inside the book as an extra, books have workbooks. Well, this won't be a workbook,
Right.
but maybe a little DVD, because there's things in the book that I'm talking about that you may not understand until you hear the fullness of it. So that's a pretty
Right.
cool idea. So thank you for that. I'll give you a small percentage for that idea. You okay with that?
Okay. I'll
Okay.
take a small percentage. And yes, I'll do you one better. Just give me a free signed autograph copy.
Oh, that's guaranteed. Of course, man. You know, we go back like Cadillac and we down like full flat tires and all that. So if there's a book signing and all that, I was thinking about something. Wouldn't it be cool to have a book signing and a CD release at the same time? Because it's not too late,
That's right.
to get my CD together, although it's, taking a back seat. But who knows? Maybe I'll release a couple of singles, just to tease, any fans
There you
that I
go.
may have picked up. So, hey, listen, everything is there's no limit to the things that can be done when you're trying to get on the right
That's right.
track. So there's a lot going on and I'm excited about it. But anyway, any thoughts, views, and comments before you go, because I do have another caller standing
No,
by.
just keep that energy.
I will. I
Keep
appreciate
that
it.
energy going. Don't let nothing stop you, slow you down. Just keep it moving. If something come up, step over it, keep it going.
I will. Thank you. We've been homies, scromies, macaronis for a long time. You've always been like a sister to me, and I just want you to know I've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it one more time. Thank you for loving me. I appreciate it.
You know we do. We do. We do.
Okay.
And you stay encouraged.
I will. So
we're
I'm
praying
gonna.
for you.
Okay, please don't stop. I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to come back with my other caller, and it's going to be good. And what I want to say, notice how, well, I'm not even going to tell you. Just watch for yourself. It's just interesting. There's nothing wrong, right, good, or bad. It just brings awareness to how we listen and how we kind of get caught up with the forest and the trees. So I'll leave it right there, okay? Thanks for your call,
All
and
right.
we'll talk soon, okay? I'll be right back.
All right.
Okay, good night.
Take care. Bye.
Mighty Horn Music. Smooth jazz, top 40, R&B, inspirationals, and more. Live from the Hollywood Home Studio. Like, share, subscribe. And thanks for tuning in. Music is the universal tool that soothes the savage beast in everyone for every occasion. It's multi-purposed. Same prescription when you're sad, happy, or even in love. Music will either enhance what's already good or make better what's not as good. So, when you find your source of music, it's like anything else you maintain. If you respect it and treat it well, it will be there when you need it. Well, Mighty Horn Music is that type of place, and Travis Bridges is that type of guy. So, let's treat him right. Your love gifts are greatly appreciated. If you like what you hear, see, or feel during this live stream and you want to show off a little, simply follow the donation platforms on the bottom of your screen. Just remember, sharing is caring. It's better to give than to receive. And if you keep more than you need, now that's just plain old greedy. Thanks for tuning in. Now, back to more Mighty Horn Music.
Okay, so you ready to go?
I am.
Okay, so you listened to the live stream.
I did.
You listened to it. You said you were listening to it in bits and pieces. Did you get through it for a second time?
Oh, no, yeah. I listened to it tonight. Absolutely.
Okay.
In
So
its entirety.
I guess I'll ask you some questions, but let me just ask you some yes or no questions real quick before you get into your explanation. First of all, thank you for taking the time and participating and supporting this cause. I guess I have different definitions of what it means and what it is. But I appreciate your time in helping me to get it off the ground. Okay, so you listened to it. Let me ask you a question. Was it more educational or entertaining?
Definitely educational. With a very
Just one or the
nice
other. That you're giving me the explanation already. I'm just asking yes or no's and one-word answers. You can give me the explanation later. So, was it more educational or entertaining?
Educational.
Okay. Was it interesting to you?
Very interesting.
Did it hold your attention?
It did hold my attention.
At any time, did you think it was not worth your time?
No, it did not.
Can you see how, although it's educational, how it's also entertaining?
Yes,
Did you find it entertaining at all?
I did.
Okay, if you had to give me a percentage of educational to entertaining, what would be the breakdown of the percentage?
I would say 70-30. 70 educational, 30 entertaining.
Was it boring in any way?
It was not.
Did you think it was too long in any kind of way?
I did not think so.
Did you think it was necessary based on the goal that I'm trying to attain?
Absolutely.
Okay. So now I'm going to let you go into wherever you want to go, and then what I'll do is I'll stop you whenever you start to explain, and then ask you questions about what it is I think you're saying. So, and then this is, I don't want you to try to be politically correct. I don't want you to try to be nice. We don't do names. I will never announce who my guests are, just like I don't announce your name. So you won't come in contact with my guests, and they won't come in contact with you. And I want you to really be yourself in sharing your true thoughts. And it doesn't have to be clean, pretty, ugly, good, or bad. I just want it to be what you really feel. So what is your initial overall take of the mindset of my guest?
Unreachable. If I have to use a word, I will use unreachable.
And why do you say that?
Well, I think from the very beginning of the interview, it was really hard to make a connection. Even at the very beginning, where there was a pause or a kind of like a silent moment, and the guest couldn't tell that there was an issue in communication. Either the guest was distracted or it was very casual about the interview itself and didn't even realize that you were not listening to her.
What do you mean I wasn't listening? That doesn't sound good if I wasn't listening to someone that's my guest.
Well, you couldn't hear her, and your audience couldn't hear her because she had you. I guess she had you on speaker, and there was a break in communication. I remember you even saying hello. In other words, like, "Are you there?" And she was responding. The guest was responding like, "Yeah, I told you I had a good day." And I think that from the beginning, there's a lack of connection or a lack of presence, where you're not present enough to realize that there is a break in the technical communication, and that's why you're not hearing her.
Okay. What do you remember most about that interaction? What stood out the most?
I don't care. That stood out the most for me. That was.
Wait a minute. I have an audience that's listening now that doesn't know. When you say I don't care, they don't know what you're talking about. Are you saying when the guest made the statement?
When the guest made the statement towards the end, and you're asking me what stands out the most, it was those words, "I do not care. I am here to answer yes or to answer no, and I do not care what you think or what answer you want from me." I think she made it very clear, the guest made it very clear that this was not a communication. This was not a conversation. This was almost like a hostile encounter. And even when people don't agree or they agree to disagree, as some people say, I think that in communication, you have to be intentional. And there was no intention for me, after listening to that interview, for the guests to engage and communicate. It was a one-way street, and that's why, you kind of hit a dead end, and that's how I saw it.
How can that be? We talked for over an hour. How can it be one way? We went back and forth quite a bit.
Well, let me tell you the sequence of that conversation, and I know you did. I mean, as the host, you started with trying to get the guest to define something, whether it was the Trinity or mind, body, and soul. And the guest continued to either say that she didn't know or she saw it as one, and everything was one. So there was this discussion about the universe and unity, and we're all the same. But then you came to a point where you're like, well, but then there is, if I am the father of my son and my son has a child, aren't we the same? No, that's a clear distinction, the guest replied. That's a very clear distinction. Well, that was contradictory in and of itself. But the reason why I'm saying it was a one-way street is because you as the host use, hey, based on your intelligence, based on a normal human being, at a third grade level, at an eighth grade level, at a seventh grade level, based on your education, you try in so many ways to get her to agree or to even articulate what a touch is, what a thought is, and in regular terms, because obviously we're not, at least I don't know that your audience is, in another type of dimension when it comes to, quantum physics, but just like everyday stuff. Hey, if I put my hand on your shoulder, is that a touch? And she did answer to some degree. She did say that it was an interpretation. I'm not sure what she meant by that because she didn't expand. But that's why I'm saying that it was a one-way, because it came to a point where you were honest enough to say, listen, I don't know how to talk about something that I don't know. And we're just not even agreeing on what a touch is. You can't articulate what a thought is. So, what do you do with that? There's not much to do, right?
I want to break down something she said in particular when she kept insisting that they're one. They're one. I don't separate them. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit is they're just one, and there is no difference. And then she said something about, I'm going to need you to stop talking about the dictionary. Every word she used to communicate in that whole hour and something that we discussed our conversation were words that were in the dictionary in some form. So
right.
She was using those words she was telling me not to reference.
Well, she's part of that society and she's part of that system, right? But she refuses to accept it and she refuses to acknowledge it. That's the way I received it. And that says something about the personality. And I think that happens in a lot of humans sometimes that, they don't want to accept certain truth or they don't want to accept certain realities. And they will deny it even though, they're part of that reality. They're soaking wet, but they're saying, no, water doesn't get you wet. So it's very obvious for the naked eye to see, well, there's something here that does not allow me to get through this person simply because they're not intentional about communicating in an honest way.
What do you think drove that? Because there was something about her interaction where she just refused to be in agreement to the point where she said, no, we're not against each other. You are. It's like every corner I went, she was there with an opposition, it seems. And maybe that was, her intention. What about that can you tie it to in terms of personality types? I mean, what would cause a person to be that, I don't know, I don't have a word for it, but it was clear that there was an effort to ensure that there was no forms of agreement with even the most basic, the basic things we were discussing. What causes that?
Well, to me, it was a part of that, and I'm going to get into that in a minute. But
it was as if it was a form of denial of some sort.
You could call it that.
Avoidance
For me,
of some sort.
It could be avoidance, but to me, it was contradictory. Period. Because if you're telling me that uni means we're all the same, and you and her are the same, and you know everything, she knows everything, then in order to get that message across, then she should be in her communication style should have reached you in such a way that you could not be resistant to her theories. But her theories are not necessarily the norm. Her theories are not the way regular, at least people that I have interaction with, think. So, again, it comes from a point of, this is my truth, this is my belief, and this is my theory. But it's kind of counterproductive, because if I am a salesman or in any profession, we're selling something. We're constantly selling an idea, a thought, a belief, a dream, a relationship. We're selling peace. We're selling all kinds of stuff. So how do you sell your story? How do you sell your image? How do you sell your worth? That's something that you have to kind of, if it's such a strong theory and if it's such a strong belief for that person, you can't say, one, I don't know, and you cannot say, I don't care. That is a complete disregard for humanity. And I think, what struck me as educational from this piece is that you really try in so many ways, with so many analogies, and you even put it down in the third level. It's like, this is stuff that we learned in the third grade. But that resistance was, I'm not letting you in. You're not going to sell me your story. I will not accept it. And that is not communication. Not only is that not communication, that's not relationship. That's definitely not an interview. Because you guys got into the discussion about what an interview is. That's not communication. So you cannot have an interview if you cannot communicate in the same language.
She said something to the effect of, why don't I ask a question, let them answer, and then I don't go into it, were her exact words. She said, don't challenge it, or just, if a person says something, just don't go into it. That's how an interview is supposed to be. You're not supposed to question or anything. So my response, subconsciously was, so if someone says something contradictory or if they're inconsistent with what they're saying, am I just supposed to just be gullible and just not get the clarity? Because that's why I'm on, on these live streams, to get an understanding, to reason,
right,
to try to find
right.
a place of, to where you can communicate. Because if you're not agreeing on certain things, it's difficult to communicate. But I wanted to hone in on something in particular before we have to go. When she insisted on saying that they were the same, and I was saying there's a difference between the same and one in the same. I was trying to differentiate. I have a problem pronouncing that word. When I was trying to say that, and she was saying they were one and the same, the word they themselves kind of insinuates that there's more than one. And if there's more than one, you can't have more than one and then they be the same. And she was saying something about unisong or something like that. So it's one. And I was trying to break down, okay, one and one in the same are the same, but it's kind of different. You got to be open enough, optimistic, so to speak, to see and understand the difference. Although you can say, well, yeah, it is one, but yeah, there's different entities of this one. She kept saying that they are the same. But how can you use the word they when they in the dictionary is more than one, and you can say they are one or they are the same? It was contradictory within itself, and I didn't want to take the time to break that down, which is why I did it later in the post-production and saying, how is it that she can subconsciously, even consciously, or even verbally even say, okay, they are the same? Or if she had said it is the same, then we would have had a whole different conversation. And I didn't want to introduce it because it would have taken the conversation to a different level. But in my mind, I was thinking, okay, if I said it, I will never get her to say they again. And I don't want to create her thinking for her. But the fact that she was saying they are the same, insisting on it, all the ways that I was breaking it down of how, yes, they are the same. They're even one in the same. I even said I'll make one in the same be a footnote, how they have differences, she was just insisting on going against it. But just in the words that she were using and saying they are the same, it was kind of contradictory within itself. And I kind of walked away thinking that, okay, this is a personality trait. This is a character. I don't want to use the word flaw, but it is a identifiable character. And I don't know enough about psychology to put a name on it. And I don't claim to be a doctor, psychologist, psychiatrist, or any of that. But I am keen enough to know, that there's something going on there, and I can just describe it. And there may be a medical or scientific or even psychological definition to what I'm saying. But there was a personality and character trait that was very clear to me, that there was a form of avoidance, there was a form of denial, there was definitely a form of separation that she was holding fast to. And no matter what I would have said, if I had turned into God in myself, I believe she would have gone against me, just because it was just, the goal she had set in her mind. One of my favorite motivational speakers, Tony Robbins, he said something about, we have a tendency to be consistent with who we believe we are. And I believe she has bought, and she owned, the receipt, and she's got the deed to the fact that, okay, she's going to be different at any cost, regardless of who she's communicating with. And regardless, it doesn't matter if you speak logic or if you point out just the basics of anything. It's going to be her belief that she's got to challenge it in some kind of way. And I attended the Landmark Forum many years ago. If you don't know what that is, Google it, check it out, ask me more about it. I can give you my understanding of what it was. But it was a long weekend type of retreat where you can go and, kind of get some insight on yourself. And it was in a group setting where there were a few hundred people there each night. And I remember there was a gentleman there who kind of had that personality or character trait where he believed that it was his responsibility to challenge anything that anybody said. And I learned the terminology, turn it off. It's like, okay, when you're at work, if you are a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher, when you come home, you've got to leave your work at the job and then come home and be at home. And they use the term turn it off. You got to turn it off. He would never be able to turn off what it is that he just believed inside of his head. And that's why he was at the forum, because he had some kind of issue where he needed to go and try to find himself. And I don't think they were able to reach him. That was a very strong personality trait that came from something or somewhere. And they're not there to diagnose anyone. They're just there to expose it. And I recall that gentleman, insisting that he had to go against everything because that's just what he did. And the facilitator, was pointing this out as he was coaching this guy through, what he was having issues with in his family and in his, his circle of life. And as that conversation developed, just like the one developed, that you listen to and the ones that I do in general, other people that are listening can hear this and they can see it and they can find themselves in that in some kind of way. I don't think I reached her, and I'm not sure if I will unless she listens back to it herself. And when I talked to her after the interview and I explained to her what I gathered from myself and how I put it together, and asked her if she would be interested in hearing it to see if she would be able to see anything, in herself. It's just like a mirror. Sometimes you can't see what's on your face until you can get a look at it. And she was like, I don't want to see it. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to. I said what I said, and that's just it. Nothing's going to change me. I don't want to hear it back. And I found that interesting. And while I'm on that note, and at least to be consistent with, being on time, I want to ask you, did you see yourself in any part of that conversation, either in me or in, my guest? Did you see yourself in any kind of way that's like, wow, I do that, or I want to make sure that I don't do that, or I listen in a certain way? Did you see yourself in her character or personality? Yes or no?
Yes.
And can you just go ahead and tell me how you saw yourself in that?
Absolutely. And maybe that's why it was so educational for me. I can attest to several conversations that I've had with people where I get to that point. And I've learned in my own research, my own research of self, that when I feel threatened, when I feel that you want to burst my bubble, or that society or my boss or somebody gets me cornered, I need to stand my ground no matter how unreasonable it may sound to other people, because it's my pain. And if this is all I have, if we're talking about a theory that I have based my reality in, and I have based my happiness in, and I have based my kind of like the way I can coexist in the world, and you challenge that, yeah, I'm going to be loud, and yeah, I'm going to defend it, and I don't want to hear anything other than what I believe. And it reminds me of a movie, a really good movie called Inside Out.
Hold on,
and
you're telling me about
movie,
a movie. I'm trying to stay focused. I'm not sure I understand how you saw yourself in her personality or her character based on you listening.
I have had conversations that have turned heated because I feel threatened. And in her case, I felt that all of her theories, it's almost, and I'm not a neuropsychologist and I'm not a brain doctor, but I have done some studies in mental health. And when you hang on to your truth, it's because you're not ready to join in society. You're not ready to see something different than your truth. You cannot cope with anything else than what you have set your mind to. Because there were times where you would say, well, can I share how I view it? And she would say, well, I guess I have to. And you're like, no, you don't. You don't have to. And, it was almost like she was resistant, like you said, resistant to hearing any other view than her view. So I have done that. I have done that in conversations, and I have had to analyze. I mean, I like to think that I'm way past that, but I have had to analyze what that behavior. And those were conversations that I never liked, and that brought the worst out in me, not the best. I was not open to hearing and open to challenge my own beliefs, because it was too painful for me to believe other than what I believed. And it came to a point in my life where I did some self-reflection, and I'm like, I can handle this pain. I can sit in this pain and accept with humility that maybe the thinking pattern that I have on this subject may not be it. Very humbling experience, but worth every minute of it. But it is painful, and many people don't want to deal with that pain.
So in one sentence, can you tell me how you saw yourself in her character or personality?
Wow. I thought I just explained that.
I know. I want you to give me a shorter version of it.
Okay. How I saw myself. I saw myself reacting or overreacting to things that I didn't understand or want to believe.
Say that again.
I have seen myself in the way she acted. I have done that. I have overreacted when I don't want to hear other things that I don't want to believe, when I don't want my own theories to be challenged.
Okay.
Because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that there might be another reality better than mine. And this is the world that I live in. And you even told her, you're like, she told you at one point, you live in this universal stuff. And you said, no, that's not where I live. That's just the extent of what I can understand. So we often live in a place that we can understand. And when somebody walks in the door and brings us another understanding that could be better for our quality of life, we feel challenged. But my goodness, you're taking the veil off my eyes so I can see another reality, another truth, another way of living that could be healthier. Some people are not ready for that.
when you listen to her, your reaction, I'm going to give you three choices. You can give me your own, but did you feel sorry for her? Did you think she was being stubborn or stupid? Did you think what was your reaction? Did you think she was unintelligent? Did you think she was just hard-headed? Give me a word in terms of how you felt. Sometimes people get what's coming to them and they deserve to be where they are because of their lack of, or I guess, stubbornness, or because of their intelligence. Sometimes people are very intelligent and they find themselves in a place of I don't know, joy, peace, happiness, and when they're stubborn, they find themselves in doom and gloom. I get the impression that she might be happy in her own circle, but there's some things about her that may be doom and gloom. So I guess, without being too wordy, what was your reaction to her attitude? Did you kind of get aggravated with her? Did you feel sorry for her? Or did you think, okay, she's going to get whatever's coming to her, whatever? What was your reaction to her attitude?
None of the above. I try not to feel sorry for anybody. I think people have the right to choose whatever life they want to. I did not, but I can tell you what the emotion I got in relationship to the way she was expressing herself. I saw a very scared person. Very, very scared. Very scared of change. Very scared of vulnerability. And I tell you that because she will overtalk you. She will shout. She will scream. And then she will be like, okay, go ahead. Almost like she attaches herself. It's like, no, I don't want to hear it. Okay, go ahead. And that kind of, back and forth, I see it as an internal struggle. It's like, give it to me, but give it to me in really small dosage. Because I cannot handle a whole teaspoon. Right? You know what I mean? Give me drops. And that's because there's fear. Fear and shame are two of the most just damaging emotions that if we don't face it and kind of embrace it and acknowledge it, it will keep us in bondage.
So let me ask you a quick question.
So I feel somebody very scared.
Okay, I want a grading scale on her attitude. We both know what attitude is in the context that we're using it. So if she had an attitude from A, B, C, or D, or an F, was her attitude A as in like, positive, outgoing, receptive, or just totally stubborn and totally off? That would be an F. So from an A to a total winning attitude, positive, upright, open, she had positive input and everything. What would you rate her attitude?
A C. Definitely a C. Not a D, not an F, not an A, not a B. Definitely a C.
Okay, I'm going to throw my opinion in there. I'm going to give her a D minus.
Well, you're entitled to that.
So tell me why you're giving her a C.
Because she was playful. Because she caught herself.
She was what?
She was playful at times. She would laugh. She was playful, and there was a time also when you're like, man, like you got me. I'm at a dead end. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And she kind of like, she gave you like a pity sign, which was very playful, I thought. But she almost felt like, I win. You see, I win. I caught him. He's at a dead end, And I, again, because I see her as somebody very scared. Somebody who is very much in bondage of certain.
Not to cut you off, but I kind of noticed before I forget that, and when I said something in regards to not knowing where to go, or I didn't know it would end up like that, she seemed to think it was funny, or to be excited that she tripped me up or threw me off path, or that I was confused, that she distracted me. She seemed to be excited about that. That did something for her. Like it made her feel.
Yeah, she won. Yeah, she won. And it was very audible. I have a problem with that word, but it was audible in her tone. She said,
Obvious.
"Aw." Yeah, obvious, yeah, but also that you could hear it. You could hear it.
So then,
And,
with all this that I'm hearing you say, I'm still kind of lost with how her attitude begets a C as opposed to a D or an F, because I don't hear a positive, open attitude, and I don't even hear an average attitude. And just because someone is playful, that doesn't mean they have a good attitude, because the many things that she was laughing and giggling about, I didn't think was funny, so it wasn't playful to me. And if I was listening,
Right.
from a distance, I don't think certain times that she was giggling was time to laugh, because it was as if, okay, she had nowhere to go, so let me laugh, or let me laugh about something just so I can get past, the embarrassment of, how I may sound or how I could be perceived. So I'm hearing you not say anything positive about her attitude, but then you're extending a C, and that's why I went ahead and said, okay, well, no, based on everything that I heard and that I observed, I don't see how that's even average. It definitely was not a positive and outgoing attitude. It was more gloom and more negative. So I can't flunk her totally, but she definitely would not get, it wouldn't be the valedictorian of any class that I would want to be a part of based on that level
No.
of response. So I don't understand. Maybe you can give me a better idea of how you're making the responses you are in regards to her attitude.
Well,
And then you're saying
yeah.
you would rate her a C on a grading scale of A to B, C, D, and F.
I'm going to tell you why. Because people like her, and this is obviously my personal belief, but I think you will agree because of the way she treated you and responded to you. And if I'm part of the audience and I can obviously see what this person is struggling with, how can I flunk them? They're delusional almost.
Well,
So
a
in order
delusional.
for me-
Okay, stop for a second. Now I'm getting into a delusional attitude. It does not beget average or C. Most people are not, delusional in communication or conversation. What I'm hearing from you is a contradictory in what you're saying. I don't hear you saying anything positive about her attitude, and then you even went so far now as to say she's delusional. I don't understand how a C comes out of delusional and non-positive.
Because I will flunk somebody if they're a sociopath. If they are somebody that in an evil,
Well, and that you say when you say
way,
that, when you're using the term sociopath, we're getting into now, clinical stuff, and I'm okay with that, but I don't want to go into that direction. I'm looking at, not from a medical or clinical or even a psychological. I'm just saying just general attitude. Like, if you had to deal with that attitude as a customer service representative, like if you walked into a store with a problem with something you purchased and that same attitude came at you, would you be happy or not?
if I'm getting paid, it will not get to me.
Okay, listen to that's not what I'm
I'll
asking
deal with
you.
it.
Hold on a second.
Okay, will I be happy or not?
Hold on a second. Stop. Hold on, please. Okay, I'm trying to get the consistency in what you're saying versus what I'm actually hearing. I haven't heard you say anything at all positive about her attitude or her ability to reason or communicate. I didn't hear you say anything like that. If I'm mistaken, then you can correct me now. I didn't hear you say that she was a good guest, she listened well, and she responded well. I heard you use words like combative, even, maybe something to that effect. And then the last word you used, even after I described it all, was delusional. Okay, those are not things that I hear that are positive or edifying or educational or even uplifting in any kind of way. And I don't understand how you are marking a C in terms of a grading scale if there's nothing average or even positive about what you are observing. So I'm not going to keep beating that horse, and if you're going to stay, with sticking with a C, but then I don't hear anything C worthy in what you observe.
Tell you why. Right. Well, let me tell you why. Because it's obviously my grading scale, right? And to me, I'm giving her a C because what she is manifesting, what she expressed in that interview, and the way she tried to communicate with you, which was very poorly, there was no communication, that attitude that she has is going to impact her 100% more than anybody else that she gives that attitude to. So the way I see it, that attitude is very auto-destructive. It pushes away people. And I can only imagine that this is a very lonely person. And with probably a lot of anger and a lot of issues, a lot of fear. So how can I, knowing something like that this person gets the worst of her attitude? Not me. Why would I give her an F? She didn't get under my skin. I just saw a very scared woman. I heard a very scared woman on the other line. So
okay,
I cannot, in no intention or ethics within me, say, oh, this person is, they're an F or a D minus. No, they're a C. And I don't like to feel sorry for people, but it's sad because, again, that attitude.
Okay, hold on. Hold on a second. Slow down. I'm hearing an extreme contradictory. You say you don't like feeling sorry, but you're describing everything that's below average in terms of an attitude, but then you're not giving the grade, but then at the same time you're saying you don't want to feel sorry for someone. It sounds like maybe
I don't.
Well, I don't understand how you can hear a less than average performance, but then give an average rating. It's contradictory to me. But then not feeling sorry.
That is contradictory to you.
Well, no, it's contradictory. I know. I have an audience that'll be hearing this, and it sounds like what you're saying is contradictory, not just to me. Everything that I'm pointing out to you is less than. Everything you are identifying is less than average. It's below average.
I know, but you and I.
Well, this isn't about. Slow down a second.
Scale.
This is not between you and I. Just like I said to her, you were brought up in the educational system. You graduated the 12th grade, and this isn't a personal thing. This is a kind of sort of generic. And
I wasn't making it personal.
I didn't say you were.
I was not making it personal.
I'm not saying you were. An A is exceptional. B is a little below that. C is about average. D is below average but still acceptable. And an F is just totally unacceptable. I have not heard anything that you tell me you observed that was above average or even that was even acceptable. I haven't heard you say anything that was worthy of an average personality or an average attitude. But then you're saying you're going to stick with saying a C, but I haven't heard anything. Tell me one thing that was productive and positive in terms of what she did. A person who's afraid. Hold on a second. You're cutting me off. You're saying words like delusional, scared, disturbed, and you used a lot of words that does not sound like someone that you would hire. And then I just gave you an example, okay? If you met that same attitude, if you walked into a store, you bought something that was defective, something maybe you wanted to return, or you had something that you needed, maybe you were overcharged or something, or maybe you bought something and then found out it was on sale. Whatever thing you walk into a store and you would expect someone to give you, a good customer service. What you described does not sound like a person who would be able to ration, with good customer service. If you were going in for a business and going in to deal with a problem in a store, and you met that attitude that you have described tonight, would you want to deal with a person like that if they were giving you customer service? Yes or no?
No.
So then I'm not understanding, and not to keep beating a dead horse, what you're saying is not just contradictory to me. Of course, we have different grading scales and we see things differently, but we're not talking about how we see things. We're talking about how they are. As I went down the grading scale, an A is exceptional. You know what an A is? Students who do their homework and they show up on time and they go beyond, just average. And then a B is maybe they just forgot something or had a bad test day or something like that. C is like, okay, they kind of studied and they got some good sense and they're smart enough to at least enroll and take the class. D means they were struggling. And an F means that they had no business even in school. So based on those scales, I don't hear anything that you're saying that gave anyone, if a student performed that way, and you're even saying you would not want that attitude to handle your customer service needs, how are you rating it a C?
Okay. Glad you asked. The scales that I'm familiar with from my last 2 years in college had A plus, A minus, B plus, B minus. A C was not a passing grade in my world. So you see how world views and attitudes and beliefs are important in a communication, right? So based on how you have articulated your argument, I'm willing to go down to a C minus. I'm willing to even go down to a C minus. But if I let myself judge her or give her a grade below average or just, that means that I'm basically doing the same thing she's doing. That means that I'm basically doing the same thing she's doing.
The story you are about to see is true. The names have been changed to protect the innocent.
That means that I'm basically doing the same thing she's doing, And to me, I like to think that there's other ways of thinking and respecting people and having a positive attitude. In the society that I live, people can change. So I'm not going to bring her down to a D. I don't think she doesn't care. Let me tell you some of the positive things that she did, if I may. May I?
Yeah, you may.
Okay. There was several times that even in her haste to get her point across or not to answer your questions or to just plainly say, I don't know, when she obviously should know, because she lives in this world unless she's been living in another planet. She should know. She did stay on the phone. She didn't hang up. She did not call you names. She did not, that I heard, she did call you passive aggressive, which I thought was a label, and she doesn't believe in labels. So again, a lot of the things going on in her conversation was somewhat contradictory. Now,
hold on a second. I need you to stop for a second. You started out by saying, I'm going to tell you some of the things that she did, and the last thing you said was she was contradictory. You keep doing the same thing over and over, and you keep telling me about all the things that are counterproductive in her attitude, and you're supposed to be telling me what she did positive. So you're saying what she did good was stayed on the phone. Okay, that
she stayed on the phone. She stayed on the phone, yes. She did not curse. She did not call you names.
I think she used the D word. It's not cursing, but I think if this was, I guess she could have. But anyway, I think I hear your point. You're going to stick with the C, and I'm okay with it. And even if you go down to a C minus, I heard you.
I'll bring it to a C minus.
Well, you almost have no choice. You just said with the scale that I'm using, you are now just bending just to say you bent, I think, and I could be wrong. But if you're going to stick with a C or a C minus, and you wouldn't even want that attitude yourself, It's still kind of contradictory, and I'm going to find a way to land this plane and end it, because we could go around and around. I think I have proven my point, and even what you're saying. You even mentioned that you were going to mention something good she said, but the only thing you said was contradictory. Contradictory is not good. But then you found a way to say, okay, she stayed on the phone. That's nothing. Staying on the phone does not give you. That's like saying, okay, wow, little Johnny tied his own shoe today, and he's 10 years old. Okay, well, that's you would expect someone, if they're in an interview, to stay on the phone. Sure, she could have gone over the edge and hung up. We both could have done that, but that's not anything to rave about. And I don't think that was a. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying you're trying to justify something she did good, and I don't see where that would even, that she's an adult, and staying on the phone.
I'm putting that in within her complete average. Okay, there were many times where she seemed like she was off the chart, and then she caught herself.
No, she didn't catch herself. She didn't catch herself. I brought it to her.
She stopped talking.
She stopped talking because I don't think she caught herself, or she stopped talking because she felt like she was right. Because normally when people think they're right or they are right, they don't have to catch themselves. They can just flow. So that stopping she did had to do with me pointing out things to her that gave her no other thing to say or any place to go. So she didn't stop and catch herself. She got caught. Because if she had caught herself, she wouldn't have been in those positions to say, oh, okay. So for what you're saying, I keep hearing you mention contradictory things. There's nothing she did that caught herself other than when I pointed out something to her. That's not. It's like, if a person is doing something wrong and then you catch them and then they say, oh, I'm sorry. But they won't say I'm sorry until you caught them. Or they won't apologize until they've been caught. So not anything she did, she didn't catch herself at all. I think she was extremely contradictory. And as you said, what was the word you just used? Contradictory, of course. And I'm not understanding. But again, if you're sticking with your now even C-, okay. But I saw nothing in her attitude, in her response, to the issue at hand that warranted anything other than an extreme D-. But okay, that's just the difference in how, we see it, and I'm going to appreciate you and respect you. And we're almost out of time, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the last, closing comments as we close out. I just thank you for giving me your time. Even this conversation between you and me proves something very good in how we listen, how we pay attention. And I definitely got something out of this. I get something out of everything. That's why when I come on, I say, okay, it doesn't matter what the topic is. Let's just start going. And I even hear you, just so you'll know, so I won't be talking to someone else about you. I think some of the things you said were somewhat in line with how she was, in that she wanted to, be different. Because even when you told me what you told me, I wanted to be clear in that, okay, I'm not going against you. I just have straight proof and evidence how what you're saying has justifiable reasons for me to say it's contradictory, and how the grade that I gave was like, okay, it's more in line with what, with the grade. I don't know. You said that you weren't feeling sorry for somebody, but everything you did displayed, a level of compassion, in that how could I do that for her? How could I flunk her? Well, you were not flunking her. You're giving her the grade that you observed, but you are actually not doing. I didn't ask you to flunk her. I asked you to give me an assessment, and you gave me an assessment, but your assessment was inconsistent with, the grade you gave. But we're beyond the point of making the point that I believe this whole conversation is about. And I'm going to let you make the last statement, and then we're going to go, because we're right on time with where we're supposed to be.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for thinking enough of me to want to dissect this conversation with me. I think you said something very good, that is when you have a theory and you believe in your theory, you don't have to catch yourself, and you don't have to, it will just flow. And you're right. It should be that way. I don't have to become combative and engage in battle with you to have you, believe what I believe. It's okay if you don't.
Real quick, sorry, while
then,
you're on that note, I hope you can remember to get back where you were. You said she caught herself. I can play it back. She didn't catch herself at all. What I brought to her attention stopped her. So I can't say she caught herself. That's not what she did. If she caught herself,
I'm going to have to agree with you after you explain it. I will go ahead and agree with you. You're absolutely right. But again, you said to develop a system to communicate is humanity. And I love that, how you structure that in that quote. We need to learn how to communicate. Compassion is part of communication. Empathy is part of communication. Obviously, you're using your grading scale. I'm using mine.
Well, hold on a second. Right there, what you're saying, there is no your and mine. There's a grading scale that goes like this: A, B, C, D, and F. And they all have numbers attached to them. An A is 100. I think 93, it starts where a B, below 93 is a B, and then so on. So when you talk about yours and mine, we're now going into the same energy that she's saying, okay, she's from this quantum physics. That's your version of quantum physics, saying that a regular grading scale is, yours and mine. There is no yours and mine. I don't have a grading scale. Where did you get a grading scale from?
Well, I know that when you grade something, there is some subjective thoughts in it.
But we're not talking about the opinion about it. And A, B, C. That's why I used that example, because it was kind of established already. I don't have to say it's mine. It's something that it's a point of reference that's already established. We've used it for decades. And you're talking about your grading scale now on something that's already established. How did you get to?
Well, I explained to you why I'm giving her a C. I'm willing to bring it to a C minus.
Right, but you're C. Well, hold on a second. It's inconsistent with what you described about her attitude, though. A C minus is not what you described about her attitude. You even went so far as to say if you met that same attitude in customer service, you wouldn't want it. I'm okay if someone has
I could get a B rate attitude and still not want it.
Well, we're not talking about what you could do. Listen, if we get into what you could do. Well, I didn't. You're telling me stuff at a time where I'm trying to stay consistent with a conversation. What you're saying is inconsistent with what you're doing. And I have pointed it out to you even on several different occasions, and you seem to do the same thing. You're sticking with your C minus on an attitude that was below even flunking. You said that you wouldn't want to.
And that's just not good enough. That's not good enough for you, is it? That I'm sticking with my C minus. That's just not.
I wouldn't care what you listen. I don't care what you say, and it's not a matter of whether it's good enough for me, because I'm not. I don't care what you say. I'm just saying if you say something.
Now you're acting just like her. You're saying you don't care.
I am. Hold on a second. I don't think. Hold on a second. And I will back up. Because you just said something to me about. It's not good enough for me. I want you to know that my opinion about what you say is irrelevant. So don't take what I'm saying out of context and say I'm doing like her, because I'm definitely not doing like her.
You say you don't care.
Well, I will say it again. As it relates to my opinion, I need you to know that I don't care. My thoughts about what you say or whether it's good enough is irrelevant. So for me to say I don't care doesn't mean I have no sense of compassion for people or the conversation. I need you to know that you went there. It was kind of underhanded to say it's not good enough for you. Well, I'm not the one who's judging. I'm just keeping you accountable for what you're saying. And clearly what you're saying and what you're doing is not balancing out. And I'm pointing that out to you repeatedly. And now you're going to go and say it's not good enough for me. That's kind of sort of as if you're, I don't know, maybe you're trying to point me out to be negative in some kind of way. But you need to understand that this isn't about me.
Certainly, this conversation is not about you. This conversation is about your guest.
Okay, so then why are you saying that?
I'm in no way, shape, or form.
Hold on. Why did you make the statement that it's not good enough for me?
Because I was making my closing statement, and you keep telling me that I'm being contradictory. Now, please, do see that C- to D or D- is not far. It's not like I'm giving her a B+ and you're giving her a D-.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do.
Far.
All right, listen.
We're not far at all.
Listen, our conversation has reached a point where I don't have to make a point. Even what you just said was consistent with everything else, and I'm okay. I think we've made a really good point, and I'm going to go ahead and end. I thought I was giving you the closing statements, and I don't know, again, how we even got to this point. That statement you just made is not good enough for you. I don't know what to call that, and maybe that's what I'll start my next live stream on, maybe with someone else analyzing my conversation with you. For you to make that statement at this time was a little kind of sort of underhanded and forced me to make a statement that you took out of context. For you to say that, I don't know.
At
maybe
this time, at the time where you kept telling me that I'm contradictory, that I'm just like her.
No. I wasn't just telling you. Hold on. I wasn't just telling you. I was proving it. I pointed it out, what you were saying and what you were doing. I wasn't just saying it. Yes, at this time.
It's your show. You win. You proved it. You got it, man. It's all you. It's all you. I'm sticking with my C-.
Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.